A new film is now on release in Australia, a film called Malibu Crush. And I'm speaking to a multi-hyphenate, James Pratt, who is the director, screenwriter, co-producer, and lead actor of Malibu Crush. James, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks so much for having me, Peter.
What was the inspiration behind this sort of knockabout comedy?
I think writing the script was always a passion, just because I have family in Los Angeles and I love Australia, and I kind of wanted to blend both flavors. And then I think probably the other 50% was just, I'm a huge Dumb and Dumber fan. Farley Brothers writing, where often the underdog and a love interest sort of all blend together. So I think both of those were definitely the interest and the inspiration.
Okay. And what were the challenges in getting this production together? Because I gather it's an American-Australian sort of co-production, is it? Or
It's an Australian production, yeah, but an American story. So basically, two Americans come to Australia, cause carnage, find themselves slightly, and then go back to America. And I sort of thought that was an interesting way to put it, because often people have it where, you go to Beverly Hills from Kansas, or you go to Los Angeles from, say, New Zealand. But actually having, Bondi Beach and Sydney as the star of the movie in a lot of ways.
okay, very interesting. And tell me about the casting of the film, because I mean, there's a lot of people in it who are very good, but I don't recognize. How did you find them all?
Yeah, that was a great question, because we just to kind of slingshot back to your last question, what were some of the challenges? COVID being probably the biggest one, meant that with casting, the challenges there were beyond people that didn't want to work during COVID, because they were worried about, obviously, the situation, people being in LA that were great Aussie actors that couldn't come back to Sydney. So the casting process was really mainly friends and family, really, as far as actually directly reaching out to people saying, hey, we've got this script, would you like to be involved, just to keep the engine rolling, just because there was always a very stop-start notion. If we sort of went through a particular, say, agent, then they might be a little stop-start due to, obviously, their clients, working through COVID. So basically, yeah, to kind of circle back to answering, I would say probably 95% were just people we knew.
Okay, how interesting. And was it easy to work with them? Because I can imagine some of them might have needed some rehearsal or some preparation or whatever.
I think probably the best way to put it, we had some people there that are quite experienced. They'd done Fast and the Furious. Scott Miller, he's worked with Jake Gyllenhaal and done a few. So he had sort of like at that end of the spectrum. And then we had at the other end, and you're absolutely right, there was challenges, because some people at the same time were, there's a difference between doing perhaps a short film and a feature film. So there was a little bit of, I guess you could say, some people need a little bit more TLC, and other people were, yep, done this before, ridden this horse, no problem.
Okay. So tell me about location shooting and using Bondi Beach, etc. How was that process?
It was, I'm going to say the right word to use would be character building, that exercise. Obviously, Bondi is a beautiful place, but when you have COVID and you have maybe 7 people walking the beach, all with masks, it really doesn't give off that vibe of what most people think of Bondi Beach. So that was like an example of one of the challenges we had. Certainly found one of the great things about Australia is that, people that even aren't in the film industry will get behind something and say, hey, yes, you can use my restaurant, you can use my store, you can use this. And I think that was something that I wasn't prepared for shooting it. Just the generosity of a lot of people that, again, didn't know me, but said, this is great what you're doing. How can I help?
Okay. How long did it take to shoot the film?
We started shooting just before COVID hit, and we were just about ready to roll cameras when that big lockdown hit. Literally, we were like about 48 hours from shooting, and that government warranted. So if you look at, we started shooting midway through 2020, as the restrictions sort of came out. And I mean, we sort of went through the whole process of distribution, and we'd sort of done picture lock, and it was at AFM in November 2021. So there still was, there was still a little bit of time, and it was, some people say it was quick, some people say it was sort of, perhaps could have been a lot faster if COVID wasn't there. But that was, I guess you could say, that the roadmap for us.
Okay. And it's so interesting. I mean, your film is certainly a comedy. You mentioned Dumb and Dumber, and I can see other sort of slapstick influences to some extent in your film. And I suppose getting that comedy timing right, as director, that would have been perhaps also a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. And also that was perhaps one of the tough things about casting the film, is that there's often that point where someone's really right for the role, they look really good, or even to the point where they have a little bit of profile and you think that's definitely going to help with distribution. And then you watch that actor or that actress do comedy, and it's a very, very different experience. Comedy, you have to either get right or it doesn't work at all. And that was, I mean, I think everyone in the film deserves such a huge rap, because I know that, not only was it, shooting through a little bit of tough conditions, but it was also just to have that comedy timing really made the film come together. And people there, some with no experience, did absolutely amazing.
Okay. And it's interesting, you as the writer, as the director, and as the lead actor, how did you find juggling all of that?
It wasn't the intention when I started, and I'll say, how do I find it? Look, if I had a chance, I would definitely recommend not wearing as many hats, just because it was one of those things where if we wanted to get it done, I had to literally wear, 4 or 5 hats, which, again, is not ideal, but it's one of those things to keep the train moving. Originally, because I went to school at NIDA, I was very happy with just writing it and doing some producing, and if I could act in it, great. But one of the key challenges we found is when COVID hit, a lot of the directors were either their workload had cut right down, and either they were needing to work at an ad agency, Monday to Friday, and the only time they could give would be, well, we could shoot it on weekends. Or other people were just very much like, look, I'm worried about losing my job, or I've got, a young baby. I have to, direct commercials for the next 12 months or so. And that was one of the things where it was like, okay, well, look, I have gone to film school, and I did a documentary years ago as a director, which, got released, and some people seem to really like it. So I thought, look, I'll just have to wear that hat. But it's a very, again, character building to wear that many hats.
It sure is.
Yeah.
But you made it. You got the film out there, and I read that you've screened at a number of film festivals and have received awards and acclaim for the film.
It's been a little humbling. Like I said to you before, I'm in West Hollywood at the moment. The film actually played at the Chinese Theater last week, and it's playing this week. But it's just, look, it has been received really well in the States. I was very taken aback. It won the Los Angeles Film Awards. It won at the iHollywood International Film Awards. It won the Beyond Hollywood International Film Awards this year. It won the New York Movie Awards. And so the comedy that you meant, that slapstick, I do think that, the feedback has been Dumb and Dumber resonates very well in America. And they love the idea of coming and seeing something in Australia. Like, they love the idea that 2 Americans could come to Australia and they can go on that road trip, which I'm really sort of humbled about, because that's what I wanted people to see.
Okay, and now, of course, it's releasing in Australia, and I think you premiered it at the Gold Coast or somewhere like that.
Yeah, we premiered it at Hoyts at Fox Studios in Sydney,
Sydney.
Last Tuesday
Right.
night on the 6th. Yes, yeah.
And now it's releasing in cinemas as well as streaming, or how's it working in
It's
Australia?
basically all online. So take your pick: Fetch TV, Amazon, YouTube Movies, Google Play, all online. And in the States, at the Chinese Theater to start with, and then online as well. And then there's a possibility of a big announcement coming up as well, which we're sort of hopefully talking to negotiate. Well, hopefully good negotiations are coming up now.
Good luck with that. Okay, very good.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so tell me, I'm intrigued, James, because you're also an auctioneer, I read. How do you find your juggling career as a filmmaker and also as an auctioneer?
I think I think depending on the the geographic where you are, meaning um, my bread and butter after NIDA has been an auctioneer in Australia, and then when I'm in the US, it's sort of been full time in the film industry. Um, I think they've got a lot of similarities, and I say this over and over again. I was really lucky going to an acting school and had no idea that I was ever going to need these skills for anything else. But obviously, the tools that you put in your toolbox there have really come into handy for other things as well. And it's been a great ride. You say to someone in the States, you're an auctioneer, and they think, yep, cattle, that's it, because auctions aren't as big. But you say you're in the film industry, and everyone knows that. Whereas in Australia, real estate's very big, and it's been really good to me when I've had the opportunity to do auctioning, between films.
Okay, okay. And I think you've even parlayed that into a television series about real estate or auctioneering or something.
I've done a few shows in the States. I did a big show which was actually based on a few celebrity houses that I'd auctioned. So there's been a few real estate shows that I've sort of done. My passion is scripted narrative feature films and TV. But it's been a really fun ride to showcase the auctioneering as well, and to showcase those skills, those toolbox skills from NIDA.
Very good, very good. Well, in fact, you used your acting skills, I read, in early episodes of Home and Away.
Ah, yes, those days. Yes. um, and I'm laughing because when you say those early episodes, I think my maturity level was right down the very bottom when I did those. To give you an idea, Peter, they had a 3,000 commemorative poster, and they wanted all the main cast to sign because it was 3,000 episode. And a friend of mine who was on the show at the time was like, "Oh yeah, you've been here for," I had a very small recurring guest arc with a couple of lines every episode that really didn't mean anything in the scheme of things. Um, and I, yeah, like, I'll sign the posters, no problem. And then of course, like, chaos erupts. Um, so basically it's come full circle. Now I'm the director dealing with difficult actors and having that on the other side of the court. So yeah.
How interesting. And tell me about the documentary that you were involved with.
This was a documentary that I directed 2011 or 12. It's called Summer Promise. Basically, the opposite of Malibu Crush. Malibu Crush is Dumb and Dumber 3. This was a documentary just on Indigenous areas, some of the roughest, most, you would put, probably high unemployment, high crime areas across Australia, and documenting obviously a new government program that came out to try and help get young teenagers and young children away from these situations. So we document them going through this great program, connecting with each other, and the outcome of it as well, which was at that time again my first foray into probably this. I'd done a short film I directed as well. But this was sort of handed to me. It wasn't something I sort of chased. So yeah, it was quite powerful stuff.
Oh, I must check it out. Okay, sounds very interesting. And just as the opposite end of the spectrum, you also acted in On Halloween, which I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, so that was a feature film that came out a couple of years ago, distributed through Vertical Entertainment in the States. So that's a horror film, and my character there is Detective Ethan Rogers. There's a creepy clown serial killer comes out every Halloween, and similarity where where part of it was shot in Australia. Most all of it was shot in Australia as America. So basically the American accent, and my character gets, just about the end of the film, my character gets, I think he gets stabbed, he gets shot with a crossbow and then stabbed about 12 times in the back after that. So there's no sequel if they made one for my character. So, but
Sounds to me it's a reflection of working in Hollywood, I suppose. So,
hey, I think the stabbing, I think the stabbing in the back 8 times is just spot on.
and I noticed you're also involved in a TV series called Conversation Hollywood.
Yeah, that was a podcast I did for I think 3 seasons, which was great. Getting the opportunity to speak to legends like Bruce Beresford from Driving Miss Daisy, and I mean, look, for me that was also a passion project, just connecting with people, hearing about their story, and also just it's been a real pleasure to sort of speak to people in the film industry and just hear their perspective. Bruce is one that definitely sticks out because he directed Driving Miss Daisy, directed Double Jeopardy with Tommy Lee Jones, Ashley Judd, and his resume is amazing. And to hear someone at that age hear their perspective on Hollywood and how things have changed, you can't buy that sort of stuff because obviously I mentioned I'm here now in LA, and times have changed, and it's great. I think the more time you spend with people that have been here and done big things, the more you learn how to how the game works.
Okay, well, in fact, are you working on something at the moment?
I have something coming up, yes. I can't really talk about it. I know that's really terrible. But stay tuned. I've got something lined up here which I can announce shortly, and then I have a passion project as well which I hope to be directing in November, which is another feature film, which basically just dotting the I's and crossing the T's is the final part here, which is a really great thing to look forward to. So, and that was probably with Malibu Crush. I didn't go into it wanting to be a director. I love acting, but I think at the end of it, like you said, if I can wear 1 or 2 hats, I would love to do the directing route more and basically chase that.
Okay, good luck with that all. Tell me, why the title Malibu Crush? I'm intrigued how you settled on that.
That's a great question. Originally, this is going back about 4 years ago, I'd written this script, and it was actually called Malibu Crush because it was about 2 guys that come from New Jersey to Malibu. And anyone that watches the movie, they can see that it's 2 dumb guys, haven't done anything with their life, go on a buddy road trip to Malibu. And the script got a little bit of traction. It had someone at CAA who was repping it. They tried to package it in-house, and then one of their head comedy agents who was trying to package it with some A-list stars went off to UTA, and the script sort of set idle. And that was when it was kind of like a little bit of a perfect storm because you had COVID hitting and not a lot happening. And I had this script that had got, it had landed on a desk of a few decent people, probably helped my ego a bit to think, oh, this script's got some life. And I thought, you know what? We're going into a point where let's just make a feature film. I was a little bit restless. And so I just rewrote it to make it so that these guys go from Pasadena in Los Angeles to Bondi Beach in Sydney. So it's still got that same road trip. And the reason why it's still called Malibu Crush is because Michael and Dewey, who are the two main characters, they actually pretend to be these 2 students from Malibu, these very obnoxious but highly skilled film directors, as their way of coming to Australia because they got no money. So they basically forge a student exchange program. So when they get to Australia, everybody in Australia is like, oh, wow, it's these 2 guys from Malibu, these real hot Steven Spielberg directors. What they don't realize is, the IQ between Michael and Dewey is, it's still, both of their IQ combined doesn't equal one person's IQ. So.
I like that. That's a very interesting background and description of the film's title. Well, look, congratulations on the film, James. And I must ask you, have you seen, apart from your own films, etc., anything else on in cinemas, television, streaming, whatever, that has impressed you?
I've actually been getting quite into the classics dances lately. A lot of the things that I've been watching, I love the Farley brothers. I mentioned this film's sort of written in that style of the comedy. So I've been getting a lot into, Shallow Hal, Hall Pass, Something About Mary on the comedy side, and then on the other side, I've just loved watching, The Office, Dances with Wolves. Just probably, yeah, finding films that have been shot where they don't have too much special effects in post, meaning it's not cut, 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 15 angles in 30 seconds. It's, a film like, I keep mentioning Dances with Wolves, or even some of the earlier James Bonds. The story is also told visually by the art direction, by the location, and also just the nuances in small things, because the camera's allowed stay in the scene for just a little bit longer, that you can pick up little things, which is great for comedy, because if the actor improvises, then you can still keep that in your scene. But if you're cutting, every 30 seconds or every sort of 3 seconds, it tends to be a bit more of a commercial.
Very, very interesting to hear that. And I must say also with Malibu Crush, it is, you're sort of suggesting this, it's a very tight 72 minutes, which is surprisingly tight for a feature film, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the alternative is Brianna and I joke, Brianna is the editor who did such a great job. We were like, look, we can keep it at, I think, 72 or 74 minutes. We can keep it there, or we can just put in 25 minutes of flashbacks, which, that's the fastest thing to do in a film. If you want to build up the time, it's either flashbacks or just montages, just one of the two. So we could have done like a bit of a Tourism Australia, extended, flyovers of harbors and those things. Probably wouldn't make sense, but yeah, it's quite a tight one. And this was a passion project for me too. So, what you see if you watch Malibu Crush is, everybody basically, coming together, making this feature film over COVID, and obviously on a very small budget. So it's, it comes together because everyone came together, rather than just we poured a bunch of money into it.
Very, very interesting to hear. Okay, we've been speaking to James Pratt, who is the lead actor, director, and screenwriter for the film Malibu Crush, which is now available online on various streaming platforms. James, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Peter, thank you very much for having a chat.
All the best.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.